Of course, today we're very honored to have our graduates here with us and their families, so let's give them a round of applause. Yeah. You know that our parish is a family of families, and so this will always be your home, and we'll always have people supporting you here and praying for you. So we look forward to your future endeavors, that God may bless them. In our gospel today, Jesus said to St. Peter, "Feed my sheep, feed my sheep." And he said it 3 times. So we might ask, well, what does this mean exactly? And some church fathers have said that this means that the shepherds of the Lord's flock ought to feed the sheep in 3 ways: by their example, by their words, and by their prayers. And we have a prayer at Mass. It's called the Preface of Holy Pastors. We always say it when there's a saint who's a priest or a bishop or a pope. And it says the exact same thing. It says that the church is strengthened by the example of their holy lives, that the church is taught by their words of preaching, and the church is kept safe in answer to their prayers. And so I think about this a lot, about what it means to feed the sheep. And so if you ask, like, what are we looking for in a new pope? You know, the answer would be these 3 qualifications. You know, someone that preaches the gospel with their life, not just in public, but also in private. Someone who teaches with clarity and teaches the truth in charity. And someone who prays and supports the church with his prayers. This is what we look for in the lives of bishops too, like our holy patron, St. Patrick. And this is what we ought to look for in our parish priests as well. And so for me, this is kind of a time that I always reflect on that and think, am I keeping up with this? Am I doing a good job or not? This is an examination of conscience that I like to make, because these 3 things, you know, my example, my words, and my prayers, they are not the only things that I do, but they're certainly the most important, according to the mind of the church. And so many times I fail to live up to it. You know, my prayer life isn't what it should be at times. My words are sometimes careless and hurtful instead of careful and helpful, and my life is not always exemplary. So, but there's a standard here, and you know, here I am trying to strive for it. But it's not just those of us who have leadership within the church. I think it also applies to everybody that has some sort of spiritual leadership. For example, parents, also grandparents, also godparents. Anybody that has a role to play should think about those words, "feed my sheep," and the 3-fold manner in which it is exercised: by example, by words, and by prayer. And this is something that we can really take to heart and think about, you know. So it's a moment for all of us to do a little examination of conscience. You know, how am I feeding the sheep that the Lord has entrusted to me? Are we doing a good job? Are we living up to what the Lord requests of us? So anywhere from the Pope on down to us parish priests, to parents of families, all of these things have our role to play. The family, we say, is the domestic church. And one time, St. Augustine, he was talking to the fathers of the congregation. He called them my fellow bishops. And so all of us have this role to play. And at the end of our lives, we will come before Jesus, and he will ask us, "Did you tend my lambs? Did you feed my sheep?" And hopefully we will be able to tell him with confidence, "Yes, I have. I've followed that. You know, I've prayed for those people entrusted to me. I've taught them with my words, and I've given an example with my life." And so let's all work together, try to live up to what the Lord asks of us.